Hey everybody, we're looking at day 2 of trying to develop some simple GUIs using the temperature conversion program as our example to work around. So I got agenda and stuff up, got some links. You guys will be following this link later today for Java programming notes. It's by a veteran comp sci teacher. He's got notes on everything. It's pretty awesome. When you follow that link, definitely read these 2 articles right here on GUI design. Later, when you get a chance, it would also be cool to go read about program structure. I think he goes into a little more detail down here. But the big idea is, how do we separate our process-oriented code, our object-oriented code, and our event handlers, which are the action listeners that we were adding to things like buttons yesterday. Anyway, point of today is that yesterday we used the swing editor to develop a GUI. We mentioned that there are some pros and cons there. Today we're going to try to go through the same process doing by hand coding. As in everything straight from a Java class typing in commands. There's pros and cons to both. I like both. So hopefully you guys get something out of this and get more comfortable with the idea of how to develop a GUI in general by having done it both ways. All right, so just going to recap what we covered yesterday. So we did a GUI introduction. We know that we can use a swing editor in Java to make this. We can do this by hand as well. That's today's topic. We're going to start to think about how do we handle action listeners and event-driven coding differently than a process-oriented or object-oriented design code. And we, of course, have the hierarchy of your frame is the base of the GUI. On top of that sit panels. On top of that sit objects, and some of those objects have an event listener associated with them. That's kind of an overall structure. And that's definitely going to come into play as well. We mentioned yesterday, too, with a hand-coded GUI, you know exactly what you're doing. There's no ambiguity. There's no hidden code. There's no locked code. It tends to be a lot simpler looking. It tends to take a little more time to do. But one major downside is that we're going to be disabling the layout manager. We're going to set that to null. And by disabling the layout manager, we're going to need to specify the coordinates of every item involved. We're not going to be able to generate a grid where it kind of knows where objects go relative to each other and then resizes them dynamically. And this means that any GUIs we code this way will not be responsively designed. And that's, of course, important for applications running on different screen resolutions and aspect ratios, especially mobile, tablet. Those are like required things for any website these days, never mind like any application. So this definitely doesn't meet like Web 2.0 basic requirements. But I think it's good as a learning process. That's why we're going to try it out anyway. It is also a little easier to debug a hand-coded thing. Sometimes on the swing-coded ones, since you don't know what that locked and IntelliJ even hidden code is, it can be a heck of a time to debug if you're not sure what's going wrong. And I think, for example, Ellie in 4th period yesterday ran into some of those issues that, like when something goes really, really wrong, honestly, I have no idea what's going on with the swing design ones. That's when we sacrifice the goat. Okay, other recap, you guys remember how to make it with the swing designer. We're not going to do that this time. This time we're just going to make a completely generic Java class and code everything right in it. So yep, absolutely normal Java class creation. We're also going to continue to call the same libraries. We'll have to do that by hand this time. Keep in mind that the swing library is a Java X, not just a Java. That X is important there. And yeah, some pro tips. We need to remember to set things to be visible, especially the frame as the last stage. Layout manager, we either need to use the pack command to get it to run, or what we're going to do today is we're going to set the layout manager to null because we're going to be hand designing it. Make sure we instance the GUI in the main class. In the main method. And yeah, we're going to start to think about how to separate out some code into different chunks. Is it object-oriented, process-oriented, or event-driven? Try to get that separated. And that's kind of the reading topic you guys will end today with. So that should do it. Let's start to design. I'm gonna just pick some arbitrary size of, and by the way, we're gonna need to know the coordinates and sizes of things today. That's why I'm jumping right into some scratch paper, whiteboard, or better yet, graph paper if you got it. So I'm gonna set up my pane right here. I'm gonna assume this frame is 400 by 400. That's my frame. For JFrame, obviously, Java. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a panel inside it. And this panel, I'm going to have that coordinate be 5, 5. And I'm going to have the dimensions on it be 390 by 390. See how that all adds up nicely? I get my 5 pixel border there. All right. Inside this, we're going to do basically the same set of stuff we did yesterday. I'm gonna have a title. That's gonna be a a text label, a J label. And let's see, I think I want this at about, let's say 20 is the left. And then let's say 20 is the top. So there's my top left corner coordinates. And also, I'm gonna start to specify coordinates in sets of 4. So basically I'm saying here's the top left corner, and here's my X and Y dimensions. And I forget if I have that in the right order or not. We'll go in IntelliJ and see which order it wants the coordinates of the corner versus the dimensions. But let's say I want this to be 20 tall and 200 wide. Because, I can have that title stretch as far across as I want. Also going to have a text field in. And let's see. I should do like 20 is my left side. Let's go 50 down. I'll make it 200 wide. And I'll make it 100 tall. And then I'll have my next one out. 20 is the left side. Let's see, I just made it 100 tall. I was already at 50. I'm at 150. I want about a 10 pixel gap there. So I'm gonna put in 160 right there. 200 wide, 100 tall. And then I'm gonna have my button. And so 20 is my left side. This added another 100, so I'm up to 260. I want another 20 pixel gap. I'm gonna put 280 right here. And this I think only needs to be maybe 60 wide and I don't know, 20 tall. Doesn't need to be as tall. So that's gonna get us started here. I'm also gonna have some labels here. On the label, let's see, I was already at 20 over. I just went 200 more over. I'm gonna add another 20 of that for a pixel gap. And so I'm gonna start these things at 260, my X coordinate. I'm gonna match the Y coordinates so they're in parallel, vertically parallel. And then I don't think this needs to be very wide or tall. And do the same thing here. 260, match the 160, 100, 50. Those would be my labels. Okay, so step 1, get yourself a storyboard, which is just kind of a snapshot of what your GUI is gonna look like. Figure out what things you want on it. Figure out your overall pixel dimensions, and for every single thing, you're gonna need to know the top left corner, what those coordinates are, as well as the dimensions on X and Y. We're gonna need 4 pieces of information for each object we're placing down. And so far we placed the frame first, size that out, put the panel inside it, give it a little border. You don't have to, you can have them to be the same. You run into some weird stuff. Oh, by the way, the frame oftentimes includes, that toolbar, it's got the minus and the X and it's got the file name and stuff. I forget if that's gonna chew up some space at the top or not. We'll find out when we try it again. Yeah, heads up, that could be a thing. Okay, so those are my concepts. You guys need to pause the video here. You can pick the same coordinates, you can pick different coordinates to make a bigger or smaller GUI, whatever you want. But if you need to pause at the moment, that'd be totally cool. And what I'm going to do is jump over and start my IntelliJ thingy bobber. And my cat is attacking me through the green screen. That's bad. I'm running an error. Oh, here we go. It's not the primary monitor, so new stuff pops up on a different screen. Okay, this is GUI number 6 for me in the last 2 days. Getting some practice. Practice is good. All right, so I'm just gonna make a new Java class, and we'll call it hand-coded. So let's call it handmade craftsmanship. All right, whatever. Go away, cat. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna need a GUI method. Do I want a GUI method? Now, you know what? Let's not separate things out yet. We're going to keep it super simple right now. And I'm just going to go right into that. One thing I am going to do, though, is make sure to remember to import my libraries. There were 2 of these libraries. They were... Oh, let me make that a little bigger so you can see. Is it bigger? No, it's not bigger. It's not sizing up. Anyway, I need to get in import Java X dot swing dot star, and also the older library Java AWT. Those are our two main GUI libraries. Okay, now I can start to do stuff. So let's see. I'm going to start us out with a JFrame. And then I'm going to need a JPanel. By the way, if you guys have time later today, it'd be really cool to play around with multiple panels and set like a forward arrow and a backward arrow button that then hide the panel you're on and show the next panel in the sequence and see if you can get a multi-panel GUI going. That would be really good practice if you have time. I think you could do some cool stuff with that. I'll try to get a tutorial video linked out for that tomorrow. Okay, let's keep defining some objects. We need a J label. We need a couple of these. Title equals J. Oh, I think you can put the text in here. I think you can also name, well, I don't know what we're going to do with those labels. Okay. And here, we'll make a couple of these. Put label. Okay, I think I've got all three of those made. I need to make the text areas. Okay, and then we need the button, right? We got to do the good capitalization things. Oh, I think I do want text on that. Let's go Fahrenheit to Celsius again. Okay, so that's kind of the basic setup of actually creating the objects. So far, it probably looks a lot like it did yesterday. On our frame, I'm going to divide this up into chunks, by the way. I'm going to deal with each type of object in its own zone. So on the frame here, let's see, what are we going to do? Main frame. Set default close operation. And that is to exit on close. Okay, and then what else do we have to do? Oh, the very, very bottom, I'm gonna stack some stuff. Here goes. Okay, so I'm gonna say on the main frame, add the panel. Okay, so now we have a panel on a frame. Then I'm gonna say on the panel, add, and we're gonna need, let's see, title. And then we're gonna need to basically add all the components to the panel. And so just go through and get the names of all your different objects there. Label. Output label. Temp. Output temp. Vert. And so yeah, hopefully everything gets added. Let's see, how many things do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 6 plus the panel. Okay, good. We're also gonna do, once all those things are added, we're gonna do main frame set visible to true. I've seen some finickiness in the past on where you locate that statement, so I'd like to keep that last. Let's see. Oh, on the main frame, we are hand coding this thing. So you need to set the layout manager to be null. Disable the layout manager, otherwise when you guys run this, it'll all smash everything in the top left corner. Your GUI will be 1 pixel big and you won't see anything ever and you'll be really confused. So if you're doing manual coding, disable your layout manager. Okay, so on this mainframe, other stuff we need to do here. We need to set the size of this thing. Set size, yep, there we go. And it is going to be 400 by 400 is what I arbitrarily decided. All right, now we can go to the panel. On the panel, I'm going to not use a set size and set position command separately, which you can do. You can set your size and position separately. What I like to do though, figure this out, it's a little easier, is set bounds. And you see how that gives me 4 coordinates? So X and Y are my starting coordinates. Okay, my panel was gonna be 5 pixels off from every edge. And so I'm doing 390, 390. Okay, so just to pan back to our example here, we were trying to get a 5 pixel border here. So I made the overall width and height 10 less and have it offset by a 5, 5 start in the top left corner. So on this thing, we're looking at, here's the top left corner's coordinates. Here's how it extends in both directions outward from that. I think that's probably the only thing we need there. I'll remember later. We're gonna go through and do the same thing on all these other objects as well. Title.setBounds, gonna use this command a bunch. And it looks like on my scratch paper I had 20, 20, 200, 20. We could go in and we could set text on that too if we wanted to. And we'll just keep going with this. You guys can do this and zoom ahead if you remember all those dimensions. If not, you can follow along. So that's not an equals, that's a set bound. Hopefully you guys can see how I'm trying to keep things a little bit organized with my lines of code. I usually put in some, just kind of a whole bunch of asterisks in comment mode as spacers and try to label stuff out so that when you're looking over this later, trying to find a particular spot, it's easy to do that. I'll clean this up in a sec if I get a chance. And we won't be able to see this until the first time it runs, so that's why we got that sketchpad of scratch paper doing a very, very simple basic storyboard. Oh, you know what? I got my labels and my input areas backwards. We would have figured that out eventually, but here we go. I think Pretzel's stuck on a loop. I feel like I heard this track already. All right. Kind of curious if I just try to run this right now, what happens? Let's give it a shot. This is all a static GUI rather than an instance GUI. I'm not sure if that's bad yet or not. We'll see what happens. Ah, forgot one of the, oh, and you have it. Okay. Oh, all right. Stuff happened. Let's see what stuff happened. Zach, let me bring it on over so you guys can see. Let's go. All right. So that doesn't look great. it's null. So good news is all my objects showed up. Bad news is it doesn't look like it's supposed to. What is wrong with my set bound? I'm gonna mess with moving this command around. Wonder if I need to disable panel layout. I'm gonna run that again. Hey, okay, apparently that fixed it. So don't just disable your frame layout, disable your panel layout too. Now, taking a look at this here, I can see that I'm gonna need a little bit more room to the right. So that's cool. And I need a little more width to that button to make sure the text displays. So I'm gonna go ahead and upgrade that width to about 100 or so. That should be more than enough. And on my labels, I'm gonna bump them. Can I bump them left? Yeah, I can bump them. And then I have 400 to work with. Need a border of 10 on the right. I can go up to 390. So I'm gonna put 140s here for those widths. That'll max out the width available for those labels. We'll run it again, and we'll see what handmade craftsmanship looks like. And here it comes. Hey, alrighty. So there you go. From here, you can start to mess with text. You can create a font, and then you can reference that font throughout your different stuff. It's a pain to try to create a font in each one. So you kind of want to pre-build the font and then just keep using that font. Same thing, you guys can change the background color, foreground color, same kinds of things you did yesterday. Just kind of geeks for geeks those commands or whatever, or just explore. You can probably also do that right in your compiler. Like if I say panel 0 dot, obviously I'm gonna get a nice menu of stuff I can try to do here. So I should be able to like set the background color. Let's go down to our setters. Yeah, set background color. Color, it's in enum. Color dot dark gray. Let's go dark mode. Run that again and see what happens. Yep, so you guys can tinker with some of those commands by hand. Now, the tricky part, and clearly this was worse because now I need white font to get a high contrast there. Always got to think about usability and accessibility. So I just made it much worse without also changing font colors. Anyway, not important. Here's what I want you guys to do next, is we need to go Google the syntax for an action listener. Remember that syntax was super weird? So we need to just cut and paste that from a working example. I'm gonna see if that code's in Geeks for Geeks right now. I haven't even checked. And remember, there's really weird so you might just open your code from yesterday and pull that in. I'm gonna see if I can. All right, so I'm gonna pull code right out of there. Let's see, we're doing a Fahrenheit to Celsius. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show you guys my version of the yesterday's project. I got it on my home computer here, so that's kind of convenient actually. Okay, first we'll run it. You guys can see how it works. Okay, so successfully got the dark mode working. Kind of snazzy. I could even maybe darken that font and still have pretty good contrast. Anyway, I'm gonna put in -40. And cool, comes out correctly, even adds a little text label. If I Celsius to Fahrenheit that, it's still -40. If I Kelvin to Celsius, -313, which of course is not possible. You can't go below 0 in Kelvin, so maybe I'll make this 273 Kelvin. That should get us 0 Celsius, which it does. get a giant number. So basically you can see that all of my buttons are working. Got the full conversion system. I didn't get to mess with the radio button yet. Now, let me show you how I streamline this code a little bit. So first of all, here's all our objects, pretty normal. I've got my method starting here to run the GUI, a lot like we built yesterday. In each action listener, what I'm doing is I'm just passing 3 parameters to a method called math tree. I don't know why I called it that. Oh, because it's like branching choices and it does math. Down here, I've got a method called math tree. It's taking those 2 character inputs and it is choosing to use number in some math that'll do the conversion based on if Celsius to Fahrenheit, Celsius to Kelvin, Fahrenheit to Celsius. So I'm basically using some characters to drive some logic for which button does which. And by popping those lines of code here, I was able to simplify what was happening in my action listeners here. So that's a great example of modularity, I think. I encourage you guys to think like that. Anyway, we're here to get this action listener. Let's go jump back over and pop that in. After the button's created, that should be fine. We just need to relabel it convert. And then I need to redo what actually happens here. Let's see, we're trying to get text out of input temp. Input temp dot get text. And with that, I need to parse that into a double or an integer. So I'm going to use the parse int command, which is available to the integer class. Sorry for thinking everything out loud backwards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass that off to an integer t that I just made to be able to receive that info. Then I can have an integer here, we'll call this t out. We'll call that t in. And t out is going to be, this is a Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? Celsius. So t in minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. That should do. And it'll truncate some stuff because we're going to round off because it's an integer. That's fine. Then I want to take my temp out, output temp, sorry. And I want to set the text to be t out plus, and I'm going to force it to be a string. Okay, so this should be a completely done GUI at this point. Oh, I should turn off the dark mode. It's cool. Compiling. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put in -40, and we should get out -40. No errors. Boom. Apparently 6 times is a good amount of practice on this. So, hope you guys found that video helpful. If you get this far and get this working, what I'd like you to try to do today is set up multiple panels. And I'll kind of explain what this means here. So I want you to just build a panel on a frame. And behind it, I want you to have another panel on the same frame with the same size and same dimensions. And I want you to set up maybe even 2 or 3 of these panels. So basically panel 0, 1, and 2. And on it, have a next button and a previous button. And assign action listeners to both those buttons. When you hit next, if we were on panel 0, I want the set visible on panel 0 to be false. That's on panel 0. And on panel 1, you should then set visible to be true. That would be, one way to switching back and forth between 2 panels. Now, obviously that might work for a single panel switch. Like if you're going from 0 to 1, hitting next should work the first time. My question is, can you guys design some logic for, maybe there's some integer. Let's call it int I for which panel is going to be. No, we'll call it int p for panel. And I would have next plus p, and I would have previous minus p. And then I would have some logic that would be mod 3, p mod 3, so that we're always getting a 0, a 1, or a 2. And that can drive some if statements that do this kind of thing. Okay, so what I'm asking you guys to do, if you have spare time today, is to try a multi-panel GUI. The only point of the GUI is that you can switch panes. And you could know which pane you're on because you could have like a text label, you know, a J label that says, this is pane 1. Or you could have a red, green, blue pane, whatever you want to do. Basically, if you hit next, it should make the thing look red, green, or blue, but not by changing the color, simply by switching which pane is visible on top of that frame. That is your goal if you have extra time, if everything is going well. Otherwise, hopefully your classmates can help you debug. And I'm considering trying to hop on Zoom or Discord or Google Meets or something. I'll pop a survey in. On the event that I'm out tomorrow too, I'll use those survey results to see if you guys need some live help or if things are going pretty well. But do try to help each other out today. Appreciate it. All right, that's it. I'll catch you later. Good luck. Have fun. Yep. Bye.